Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's the first of 2025's conversations, and we are getting things popping with the great Dean Alto. I feel I butchered your name, man.
You're close enough. Alioto. Close enough.
Alioto.
I butcher it myself too, so it's all
Okay, well, Dean, you've got a new documentary, a new movie dropping today, the 8th of January, right? How are you
good.
feeling, my friend?
Good. There's so much buildup that goes on when you're making any project, and because this ended up being 7 years,
Mm.
and ended up being a whole documentary, and then a part two to the documentary, and a couple other documentaries. I've been slammed for all this time, 66 interviews, 4 countries, pulling this all together. And now's the time where you present it. And so it's kind of like getting your doctorate, where you have to stand up and present your thesis. And the people that you're standing up to aren't a few people, academics behind a table. It's the world. So, no pressure at all.
I think one thing that was like really interesting as well, because I don't know, but like, was this the last thing that Douglas Trumbull did?
Yes, it was Douglas Trumbull. From a pioneer special effects man from
Mm.
2001, Close Encounters, Blade Runner. This is actually dedicated. This movie's dedicated to Doug. It was the last interview he did.
Right. Yeah, because I was wondering that. And I thought that that's added pressure, right? It's added pressure, but I think you did Doug proud, man. I think he'd be happy because this was such an interesting documentary
Oh,
because
thank you.
there's a load of documentaries about aliens, abductions and things like that. But I think what I enjoyed, I mean, there's so many things, but we've got this breadth of people involved that are from so many different spheres of life. You know what I mean? It's not just this person being abducted, this person, is like has been reading books and looking into it. We got the like deep oh my days, I'm so bad with names, man. Deep sad? Deep
Oh,
Sad.
Deep Prasad. Deep Prasad talks about time and how time can be moving forwards and backwards, but what about side to side?
Yeah. And the whole fly analogy, and because that was always a big thing about the ships move so fast, so a human couldn't be in there because they would die. But then when Deep's talking, you're like, I've not heard that perspective before.
Oh yeah, that's Dr. Michael P. Masters out of Montana Tech. His extraterrestrial theory is about that these beings could be us from the future, and he also talks about the physics of these crafts as well. That how it wouldn't be that they would be moving super fast. It would just be that they were either skipping time or at the time that they're living in their time frame. It would be like a fly. Like when you look at a fly, it's moving, twitching so fast. It's almost like an old black and white, silent movie where it's all jittery.
Yeah.
And so, when we go to hit that fly and take it out, the fly just feels like it's got all the time in the world, and it just moves out of the way, no problem. It's very hard to get them, and so it's funny, the phenomenon, man. It encompasses so much beyond just seeing lights in the sky.
Yeah. So, like the animation, there's so many things that make this a more unique experience than a lot of the other things out there. So I guess the question, like, how did this come to you? Like, what was the genesis to bring this to life?
One day I was watching some TV show and a knock on the door came and the aliens came in. They said, "Hey, what's your schedule like for the next 7 years?" I'm like, "Dude, did you talk to my agent? Because I do everything through my agent." And they said, "We don't deal with agents." So that's how it happened. No, it came about because I'm generally interested, like you, in the phenomenon, and because I've done documentaries that were either historical documentaries or crime show documentaries. I've been working in that space for a while, and I thought, but I would love to tackle the phenomenon, take a swipe at it with my with the toolbox that I have from doing these documentaries for A&E, Bravo, and Discovery, and what would that look like? Where would that lead me? And so just that conceit. And so it was kind of percolating. And then I thought, well, I don't want to do a documentary like, what's been done before, because so many terrific documentaries have been done in this space. If I'm going to do it, I want to add to it and contribute to it and put something new on the menu. And then that's when I hit on the idea of doing the opposite of every documentary and not telling it from the human's perspective, but from the visitor's perspective. And that opened up a whole other prism that I had not seen before, and it reinvigorated me in doing another documentary. And so that's pretty much how it came about.
Right. So when you're thinking, let me do it from the alien's perspective, like, what is that? How did that look like in your head? Because, obviously we haven't been able to talk to an alien as of yet to find out, right? What are you thinking? Why are you coming here? What's the end goal?
Yeah, well, it's like when I would work on these criminal shows, right? I would spend just as much time looking at it from the victim's point of view that I would the perpetrator's point of view. Why would they do that? And we have shows like that, like Criminal Minds, that focus just on looking at it from their perspective. And so, part of the fictional character Sherlock Holmes was that he could look at it from whoever was the murderer or whatever's perspective. And so you glean much more. And what happens is you also, when you look at it from that perspective, you start to hold up a mirror to yourself. Because in a way, an advanced technology, civilization like these beings come from, they had to achieve that through maturing, through years. I mean, we're relatively new, comparatively new to the universe. Yeah. There are a few billion years before we showed up, or after, before we showed up. So they may not be just 1,000 years older. They could be billions of years older. And so I'm intrigued by that notion that they maybe survived going through their own wars and everything, and they've transcended that, and they're now a species that's purely operating on curiosity. And so I feel like holding up that mirror and going, this could be us in the future. And how would we look at ourselves going back in time, at how primitive we are? I mean, we look at tribes that are living isolated lives out there, and we're observing them. I mean, that's riveting. Michio Kaku kind of said in part 2, he says, I don't know that we would really be looking at these, because how interesting it would be to someone that's so advanced. It'd be like looking at ants. And the comedian and UFO researcher Dave Foley, he stepped in and said, well, there is a profession for that. It's called entomologist. Entomology. So yes, we are curious, even at a microscopic level, if you will.
Well, yeah, because, people still love going to museums.
Yeah.
Right? We still like to, they're still unearthing new types of dinosaur and new perspective on what dinosaurs were like. Right? They're like, oh, actually, they might have had feathers. They might have had fur. We thought the T-Rex looked like this, but now we believe it looks like that. So everything is still in flux. We don't actually have, there was that back in the day. I feel there was that, this is what it is. But now it seems people are more open and they're looking and looking and looking to try and go, was it like this? Could it be like that? So if we're doing that, what's to say other people ain't doing that?
Extend out there. So the question then becomes, the universal question becomes, does Universal Studios make a Jurassic Park film because a new species has been found, or is a new species found after Jurassic Park creates a fictional character that turns out to be real? Which came first? The IP or the studio? It is interesting how the way that mankind is we look at things in a micro level, we're trying to dissect it, right? And so it's like, wow, look, there's atoms. And then there's subatomic particles. And then you keep going down and down. And I kind of think, because I'm also a writer, I go, I wonder if this isn't like we're living in a simulated reality. I wonder if it's not, oh, crap, they've discovered subatomic particles. Now we got to come up and invent something else that's even more micro than that. Okay, let's come up with plasma, or let's come up with whatever. And so it's endless. It's endless, and it's great fodder. But the documentary is kind of the goal of it is to look at where we are right now, with what we know, but also project out with what will be. And I think we can safely do that at this point. I mean, things are going to be accelerated greatly, right, with AI, and it's going to be a crazy world. I mean, if you grew up before 2008, before these, you had much more time to ponder. Now we can ponder with other people, or we can take their pondering and call it our own.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can just look at music, so back in the day when it was just records and cassettes, finding old music, you had to really be kind of devoted to that, right? I just remember as a 14, 15, I'd go into London, and just me and my friends would just spend Saturday morning bopping, record shop, digging in the crates, looking for different records. That's what you would do. Jungle was big back then, right? Drum and bass. And for some reason didn't make it really to the States. And it was great, man. But like hip hop, there was a load of samples in it. So you'd kind of be looking for those old songs, but you'd be like, that sounds like a reefer. What's that song? So you're looking, trying to find. So that's what you were doing. But it wasn't like, oh, I can just, no, it was a conscious effort to do that. But now, Apple Music, Spotify, Shazam, like it's easy.
Evil Empire.
Yeah. It's easy to do that thing, right? So it's just like now with AI, and like just the internet where it is now to where it was back then, it's definitely, gonna be throwing up a whole heap of different, possibilities when it comes to this work, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it permeates everything in life. It's kind of having someone else do your homework for you.
Yeah.
AI. I think that's the best way to kind of describe it. But you mentioned music. You're going to have films that will be scored by just telling a computer come up with themes that are like Dr. Zhivago meets Austin Powers meets Dr. Strangelove. Give me that vibe, and it'll kick it out, and it'll be good. And so it's weird. I don't know where kind of creativity starts and where technology takes over. I mean, people were saying that when Human League and Kraftwerk and some of these cats were coming out with like amazing techno pop sounds, they were going, oh, this is soulless, and it's like, no, it's not. It can work. Sampling, same thing. You're being derivative. Yes, definitely you're being derivative, but what you do with it is interesting. I mean, we remake movies all the time. We don't necessarily remake documentaries, though.
Well, that yeah, that is actually, you know what I mean. You don't. I mean, you can revisit the subject matter, but
Yeah,
it's usually a different director, so it's a completely different take.
completely
You know.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, they've never done. That's in. It's like on the AI front though with music, I do believe, right, that yes, we will be able to put criteria into the system, and we'll get something, and it will be decent. But like with film and music, where you have, I mean, the Hallmark channel's a big example, right? With the churning out Christmas movie, like the Sci-Fi Channel with all of their, shark v giant crab and all of these kind of things, right? They were, you know, some people love them, right? But they're
Yeah.
not winning Oscars. But you then have like an auteur like Denis Villeneuve, and he does Arrival,
Yeah.
and you're just like, God damn it, that's good, right? And I think so. AI will be making our Hallmark Channel stuff. So then you've got the
I love this,
filmmakers,
dude. I love this. Yeah.
yeah.
Let
Because I
them.
think, like, someone like, I don't think AI is making the alien perspective.
No,
You know what I'm saying? So,
not
like,
today.
people like you, people like Ruth Do, and
Hmm.
you know what I mean, so many other incredible talents on the indie scene, and just Christopher Nolan, like Ridley Scott. You know what I mean? They've got a unique viewpoint that, like, no one's making a Christopher Nolan film.
Right.
You know what I mean? People can attempt, but no one gets close to what he does. And I think that's the thing. AI won't be, because no one can do that.
Yeah.
It's a unique viewpoint, a unique vision. So I think, I think it will sift, like what it will do. It will get rid of the people that are half in, half out, right? The people that don't actually love it, right? The people that are grifting, that are thinking, I think I could make, like, they're making money, I could do this, or oh, if I do this, I could meet these people. It'll get rid of those,
Right.
and we'll just have, we're like sieving through the broth, getting rid of the fat off the top, so then we've just got that pure flavor. And I think
Yeah,
that's
and then we
what
can
we're left with.
focus on that. It's interesting because when I started out in the business, there were no DSLR as a filmmaker. There were no DSLR cameras.
Mm.
You could actually shoot a movie, let alone with your iPhone now that you can
Yeah.
easily do, and it's going to look decent, more than decent. Back then, the journey it took you to get your script to the screen, whether it was 16 millimeter or 35, that honed your craft. That you kept working on that script because you had the time, because it took so long to get it funded and get it out there because it was so expensive. And so, it wasn't for the faint of heart. Now it's kind of like being in high school where everyone was in a band, It wasn't a big thing to say, hey, dude, you want to pick up a bass and we'll make some noise and stuff, whatever. And you flirt with it and have a little romance, and then it goes away and you never, touch it again, or maybe your buddies, weekend warriors years later. But filmmaking's become that now. Sundance, when I submitted to Sundance, my first film, there were 400 submissions. Now there's 17,000. So it's accessible. When I think about technology, well, getting back to music, what kind of scares me more than anything is, I believe it was Spotify that was doing this. They're creating their own music digitally, and they're slapping a band name on it, and they're releasing it, and they're profiling it up front, and generating followers for these bands that they own, so they control all the profits. And now they're not even paying. I don't know. That's a whole other thing that is gives me great angst. I keep wondering. I wish all these people get together, like Taylor Swift and people who have made billions of dollars just when you're touring, take that and open up their own Spotify, their own version, and go ahead and take 15 or 20%, fine, but give the rest to the artists. I mean, I don't know why we're not doing that, because it's only going to get worse.
There was that. Oh God, what was it called?
Napster.
No. It was a label that Jay-Z was involved in,
Mm-hmm.
and a load of artists, and they all had ownership of the thing. I forget what it was called now. I think they sold some of it to Apple.
See, that's the problem. It becomes too
Yeah.
popular, and then money wins out. And so
Yeah.
it's so frustrating, because it's almost like you have to take the IP and you have to make it public, like the internet. The person who created the internet could have easily copied and said, okay, you're gonna have to have a subscription through me, but he's like, no, democratize it. However, we do have all these nefarious, I'm being kind, cable companies that you have to get your online service through, that do control however much they want to charge you based on nothing other than what they decide.
Yeah. And like, they can block access to certain websites.
Yeah.
Right. And have you used like DuckDuckGo? Right. So it's meant to be now. It's meant to be like Google, but without the curation.
Without without the curations, and without the security, and without.
Yeah.
No.
But the problem is you can search on it. You're putting, say, your movie, right? And you'll get different results than if you search on Google. Now, I then found, after a while, I found out that it's because even if you set up your own iOS kind of thing, you still have to use like something that Google has control of. So you're still getting screwed. And that's the thing. It's just like they will put certain things at the top of a search.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that was the problem with this music website, that although you had people using it, like Apple and Spotify are the big ones, so it's trying to get through all of that. And I think that's the problem sometimes, because if you do a search, the videos and stuff that come up first are going to be the Apple and the Spotify ones.
Yeah, and they pay for that.
Yeah.
It says sponsored. At least they label it. But exactly, that's what they do. And there's so much it gets lost, and so it's funny. I think people, like, I know I do this with Amazon. They'll have all the sponsor ones, and I quickly go and I try to click what has most of the highest ratings of it. Though there are companies that just go in and just give great reviews and do all that.
Yeah.
But I'll scroll down a little bit, and I'll tend to look at sometimes top rated by users. An Amazon, what is it called? The label Amazon
Choice.
Yeah, exactly. And so that kind of helps narrow it down from these other companies that just own, and are screaming at you, buy me.
Yeah, I never click on the sponsored links on Amazon.
Yeah,
because I know that you paid for that. So
yeah.
let me, as you said, let me find ones that people are actually kind of, championing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the thing, I think. But it's a difficult situation you find yourself in. I mean, as a filmmaker, how do you navigate that when you're releasing something? Because when it's a big film like Gladiator 2, when you look at the marketing budget they throw into that, right? You see adverts during this, NFL football games, what I mean? Just all over the shop.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess when I'm coming out with it's the campaign, it's doing these like what we're doing right now. But at some point it's got to, stand on its own. And you might come out of the gate, like with movies, you might come out and have a good first weekend, and then word of mouth comes out. And so it's, good will triumph. So, there'll be other filmmakers that I know, and I've had moments earlier in my career where it's kind of like, oh, is it my karma? Why can't I get this and that? And it's like, no, you have to be undeniably good.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to get ahead in anything. You really do. And other people will go, I want some of your good, and I want to sponsor your good. And so I find that is still the case. And so with regards to, like, all these tools and everything, it's ultimately going to end up on the imagination. Like, one thing that AI will never be able to do is never be able to tell a story that's real.
No.
It just won't happen, because and I always say that with regards to screenplays, as much as you put in of your own life, that's going to ensure that you are not in danger of doing something that's going to be similar. Like when I have a high concept idea, I know that right away a couple dozen people, probably more, at that same moment got the same idea. And so I always try to, like, clear my schedule and write it out really quickly and get it out there. But it's just, it comes in the zeitgeist. People start thinking the same way. What if?
Yeah. I think it's just like understanding, what a story is. Because I think that, there's a lot of people that want to tell stories, but there's people that can't tell a story.
There's that.
You know what I'm saying? And I think, like, I've spoken to some people, right? And they'll be like, I wrote the script in a weekend. And you're waiting to be like, so that was the first draft.
Yeah.
And so then it took a few months to polish it. I did a second, we read through it, worked on a third full, but they're like, nope, it was just the one draft. You're just like, it shows.
Yeah.
Like, it shows. There's a skill to story. And some people, right? Like, how many times have you read an author who the beginning of the book is incredible, middle is great, the ending is terrible,
Rubbish.
and all of their books, they just cannot nail the ending.
Yeah.
That some people, they can't start a book, but then the middle and the end is fantastic, and you're just like, yo, I'm so glad I stuck with this, because I was ready to put that shit down,
Well, it's funny because those things, like my second acts, I could start a movie no problem, and I always had the third act. I felt like, at least for me, I felt like that was something that I had a grip on. The second act, not so much. I was kind of like, what goes on? How do I sustain this? And some people have simplified it to say the first act is you climbing up in the tree, and the second act is throwing rocks at the person up in the tree. And the third act is how they get down in the most inventive way. But it is tough. And so what happens is those weaknesses, I wish someone said to me early on, those weaknesses that you have, that's where the writing actually is. And those weaknesses are going to become the things that you're going to be the best at, even better than the things that you are intuitively good at, because you will start getting into the minutia, the nuances of it, and the dynamics of it. And through exploration, you're going to become an expert at that more than you will because the others were just, you just had a feeling for it. And so if you're going to stick at something, you got to embrace those. My girlfriend Allie is getting her master's, another master's, this in creative writing. And I will give her notes, and she doesn't defend them fervently like I would do when I was, starting out writing. She'll just go, "Oh, that's good," or "Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense." And then she just pivots and does that. And I'm, learning from that and going, "Oh, wow, okay. My babies don't need defending." It's, it's you have to kind of honor it. It's like when I'm editing a movie, I go, okay, well, this doesn't work. I'm getting big negative responses to certain elements of it. That's okay. I can cut those elements out. I know that I've always got that version saved on my hard drive. So if I need to, it's there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know, we're in the, you and I are in, we're in the communication business, right? And so our goal is to communicate in a way that people understand and not confuses. And I don't mean being abstract and leaving it up to the person and it's you know, it has its own interpretation. No, there's certain tenets that you have to do. Otherwise, you're just saying, I'm going to throw up spaghetti. You tell me what it is. And that's, you know, that's fobbing it off onto your audience.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, you know, finding that connective tissue that works, you know, and I guess with something like, you know, the alien perspective, it's firstly, it's finding a diverse group of people, right? That all have that different thing that they're bringing to the table and are all interesting. So you have to do that. And then it's just connecting it so it makes sense. So it feels like you know, a flowing narrative rather than a very disjointed, you know, 80 minutes or so of people just saying different things.
Yeah, I almost feel like if I was going to design the perfect artist or set them on an ideal path, it would be to have some of it set aside, some of their artistic endeavors set aside to not be informed by any of the masters. You know, the Beatles are a perfect example of that. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. Couldn't read music. It was just what we wanted to hear.
Yeah.
And then some point you introduce some of the classics and you introduce some of the things that have been done before that becomes tools. And for the Beatles, that was George Martin. He came in and said, all right, we're going to do some, you know, orchestral arrangements here. And, you know, without that, you don't get Yesterday. What was great about Yesterday, you sure as hell don't get Eleanor Rigby, you know, a bunch of cellos. You don't get that. So it's kind of like you have to honor the exploration, the curiosity to go off the beaten path. Sometimes when I'm entering into a new discipline or art form, I find that I start going, oh, I'm going to look at what everyone else has done. And I start going, oh God, everything I'm doing is just a copy of that. And so when you're just playing with something, you're not copying anyone.
No.
You're finding your voice. And ultimately, that's what it is. You've got to find your voice. For any artist, it's all about your voice. Everything else can be polished and, you know, trimmed.
Yeah, I think it's one thing that I kind of noticed with like a lot of these singing competitions, right? You'd have the judges sitting there and being like, oh, no, you don't sound right. And your voice isn't strong enough and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, if you take the winners a lot of the time, you couldn't pick them out of a musical lineup. Right, because they supposedly got this perfect voice, but it all sounds the same. Now you look at people like Chrissy Hine, Jack White, you know what I mean, like Marvin Gaye, Otis Redding. They're like, you wouldn't necessarily always go, that's a perfect voice.
Yeah,
but it's a voice that resonates so much pain and love and soul, right? It just cuts through you, right? It hits you in that place where, you know, everything collides and you see so many different colors, right? And that's what real talent can do. It's not perfect, right? But it resonates.
Yeah, it's tough because what you have is you have someone like Marvin Gaye that you mentioned, and Marvin Gaye wanted to be a crooner. He wanted to be Sinatra. And so you'll see early pictures of him, video of him dressed to the nines in a tux, man, a dinner tux and everything. And his voice has a different styling to it. And then at some point, he just sees what's going on in the world, and he's got to sing about certain things that cause him, and his writing that cause him to sound different. And all of a sudden, you've got Mercy, you've got Heard Through the Grapevine, all these great songs where it's just, holy crap.
Yeah.
He's found his voice. Not that it wasn't great before him, but it just seems like my daughter right now works, she's worked for 11 years in the music industry. She was the youngest BMG intern. She was 16 years old in their history. And she was dragging me to the mall to see this guy who had a really weird last name. And then he blew up, Justin Bieber. And so she's already like, she has a good ear for finding what's going to be relevant and blow up and everything. But I will say to her, I go, God, some of the artists today's, it's this, the guys have their own thing and the women are this, it's just kind of like, it's just this weird kind of sound that isn't like Stevie Nicks. It's not, John Mayer copped to it. John Mayer said, look, I spent as much time coming up with my vocal style as I did with my guitar playing. And he tried on all these different ones and said, this one resonated with who I am. But I don't see any artists out there that are standing out there where I go, oh my God, their voices. How many times did you and I as kids, we would go, oh, I'm going to listen to this because Mick Jagger's voice, or, what's his name? Joe Cocker. Oh, geez, holy crap.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's a funny thing because it's like I feel a lot of new artists, not all of them.
Yeah.
Right. But there's definitely a few that when you hear them live, you're just like, what the fuck? Because they're using so much like production.
Yeah. And which they can do live now. Yeah.
And it's, man, there's some people, right? Like, there's a British singer, Corinne Bailey Rae.
Yeah.
She is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Like Liana La Havas, Laura Malouf.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There's these people with these incredible voices, but they're popular, but they're not as big as you feel they should be.
They're not distinctive. It's like, was it Duffy, Amy Winehouse? I mean, these were voices that it's kind of like a really nice storyteller, or you're listening to a book on tape and you have this person like Burl Ives, where you felt like you were hearing a part of their soul. And these days, it just seems like they're focusing on the wrong thing. They're focusing on getting, eyeballs on them, getting subscribers, everything else. It's not, and I was guilty of that when I almost did a podcast and I got way in the rabbit hole and I was becoming obsessed with it to the point that my girlfriend did pretty much an intervention on me. And I realized I was doing it for all the wrong reasons and it wasn't fun anymore. And it it was like, how am I going to do a podcast? Because I'm interested in certainly, UFOs and the phenomenon, but I'm also interested in movies and a huge fan of music. So, and art. So what is that? I just couldn't get my brain around it. But I mean, how excited do we get when we get someone where they pop up on the scene? I remember when Mariah Carey came out and she was singing and she was doing that Phoebe Snow high operatic octave. And it was just like, oh my God. It's like, yes, give it to me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a weird, now she's big, right? I know a load of people love her, but I don't quite get Sabrina Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels that the biggest thing is being sold is her kind of like, oh, she's got a sexy schoolgirl kind of, but you know what I mean? And it's just like, it feels kind of creepy and weird to me. But that seems to be the thing that's getting thrown in your face all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's been done a zillion times, where you're selling the sexuality ahead of,
Mm.
you know, it's the label. It's oh my God, just went in my brain. Hit me one more time.
Oh, Britney Spears.
Thank you. That was her whole hook. That was her
Mm.
big hook coming out. His little girl school
Yep.
outfit and everything. Again, it's closing your eyes and listening to it. That's what matters. At the end of the day, that's what matters.
Mm.
And so I don't know how long that carries. I don't know how much longevity you have there, but you know, and also there's not a lot of bridges in songs anymore.
Mm.
They seem to gloss over those. It's the strangest thing. Sting was talking about that. He misses that. He misses that bridge. When you hit that bridge, it was that release. And so everything just almost feels monotone in a way if you're not doing that. Right? Do you feel that as well, that we're missing that component?
Yeah, like music has definitely changed. It's definitely changed. Now we go through these kind of weird peaks and troughs and
True.
things like that. So it's just like, okay, let's, you know what I mean? Let's give these kids this moment. Let's see what they do with it, and then let's see where we go to next, type of thing. Because I'm not really feeling it as much. There's the odd people that come through, and I'm just like, oh, really digging their stuff, you know. Gosh, there's this singer, I cannot think of her name. Soul, something, Cleo Soul.
Mm-hmm.
Cleo, so man, I discovered her a few years back. She's incredible. She's incredible.
Wow.
Right. But there's not a load of Cleo Souls. You know what I mean? You discover the odd few person, but it seems different to what it was back in the day.
Yeah, and it's also what you're writing about.
Oh gosh, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one thing that I really, being a writer, worked hard to impart on my daughter is listen to the lyrics. Listen to the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the songs she'd be listening to because the melody's great and it's the packaging is all terrific, and then she would come to me and say, "This is inane, Dad. This is just talking about going out and partying and this and that and blah blah blah, and nothing of substance." You know, and you can write about those things like closing time. It isn't about going out and getting drunk. It's about the end of the night. It's about that aspect of it where it's like, all right, this is, and what does that mean? And then a call back to a relationship. I mean, yeah, I mean, literally again, because of the technology, not to be poo-pooing all this technology and sounding like we're dinosaurs here, but craft, man, bringing stuff, looking at things from a zillion different angles. Otherwise you're creating a car that is just this slope and it has no dimensionality to it. And I don't know. I find that the things that last and the thing that people that stands the test of time is things that are so layered and they have things going on. Like, you know, you'll see a movie and then you'll realize, oh, like you talked about Christopher Nolan, or we were talking about, maybe that was the last. The podcasts are all coming jumbled in my head right
now. No. We mentioned Nolan.
All right, so Nolan, thank you. So Nolan, one of the things that was so amazing about Dark Knight was he took a page out of Jaws, which is every time the Joker's coming, we hear that drone sound, that high-pitched sound that's coming, numbingness, mechanical sound coming, and it would just instill dread in you. And that is texturizing storytelling on an auditory way. It's using the tools. And I think a lot of people today, they put a few tools in their toolbox and think they're done.
Yeah.
That's it.
No. Yeah, it's a constant journey with this stuff. Right? You're always, it's like, oh man, my friend, a great director like Daniel Glenn Barber, he's just finished this 6-part web series that he's putting out. And you know, before that, he'd made I think 3 features. And like we were talking about like the making of this series and stuff, and he's just like, man, like I really had to think about what I was doing, because there was, you know, when I was going through it, there's scenes that just There's bits that weren't working.
Right.
And then I had to like think, how do I make this work? How do I get into this? And I remember he was just like, yo, I thought I did it. I came up with it. I got the guy to do an audition tape. And it was just like, and you watch it. I think it's the beginning of episode 5. And it really works, right? It gives you this different perspective of the character.
Right.
And like we see this thing, because he talks about, I want to make movies, I'm not getting breaks and blah, blah, blah. But you actually then see him trying, like doing this thing, and you're just like, oh shit, yeah, that worked. And so it's, you know what I mean? Like constantly just not going, I know it, I've got it, but thinking, how can I improve this? How can I make this better? How can I find this new angle into something? And I think there's a lot of people that always just think, well, I've got it now. I've got the keys. I'm great.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Wrong. As soon as you do that, you have time-stamped your talent, your abilities at that moment, and it does not progress. It doesn't go anywhere. You've retarded yourself in that regard. It's kind of like every time you do a creative endeavor, you're trying to crack the code, right? And sometimes you don't have much material to work with, and that just means that the puzzle only has so many pieces. But you have to be able to take what you have and assemble it in a way that it's kind of like a rock. And hard edges are great too, but the more and more you polish it, the smoother and smoother it gets, the more beautiful it gets. A diamond isn't just a round ball. There's sections that are smooth, and it has some symmetry to it that comes back and circles back to it and wraps up its comment and what it's trying to say. And so the arts in general have such an amazing capacity to hit you on so many different levels, from your soul to your mind to your body. And to limit yourself is, I don't know, it's kind of like you're cluttering up the space. That's you're guilty of doing that when you do that. I don't want to do that. I want to have something that it's kind of something that I can point to that you haven't seen before, and you go, oh, that's worth looking at.
Yeah, which is very, and I think that's a telling thing about yourself, because when you look at things, right, your first joint, the McPherson tape, back in 89, you did that.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? And now you've got the alien perspective. You know what I mean? And you dipped in and out, right? But you've done narrative, you've done TV, you've done documentaries, you've done like historical pieces. You've done a variety of work, but every time it seems you're going back to the alien kind of thing. It's different.
Hopefully. Yeah. Well, it's kind of like what gets me out of the cellar is it's like, and back on the playing field is, it's like, oh shoot, this is something that I want to see that I haven't seen. And so there's got to be a reason that gets me up and makes me want to commit not just my time, but others, crew people's time. I try to be very respectful of that. If I'm going to take people on a journey, it's got to be hopefully somewhere interesting. It's, nothing worse than being on a boat that doesn't know where it's going. And so every time I go out, it's because I keep finding these aspects of the phenomenon that I haven't clued in before, or someone else is cluing in. And I go, oh, I think I can add to that. And so that's the thing about the phenomenon, is it keeps pulling me in. And every time I in Godfather 3, every time I try to get out, it pulls me back. And it's been doing that. And, I'm just kind of like, at this point, I just give into it and try to enjoy, the journey and meeting people, which is what's the best part about doing documentaries, really, is meeting people and sharing ideas.
I mean, it is, right? But as we talked about earlier, right, there's people that get into something just kind of meet people. right? To get into those spaces, to be like, oh, I can get invited to this party, and I can be, get to go to these restaurants. And so the love for the thing isn't really there. So it's meeting people, but it's also finding a way to get these interesting things from them, right? Like when you look at everyone that participated in the doc, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't realize that Dave Foley was like into UFOs like that.
Oh,
Like, it
yeah.
was like crazy interesting, like hearing Dave, and it wasn't like he's a comedian, right? He's funny, but it wasn't just like Dave Foley sitting there trying to make you laugh all the time. Like he's dropping some interesting bits on you,
Yeah.
right? And you got that out of him. Like Mitch, like I think Michio
Calcu.
Yes, thank you.
Took me a while to get that name down too, my friend.
Like, he is a fascinating dude, man. Like, I've heard him a few times on the JRE, and it's always interesting. But sometimes you hear people, and then after a while, it's just like, I've heard that before. I've heard them say that shit, but it's getting that new thing from them. And you were able to bring these people together, these interesting crop of people, and get interesting things, right? Just not the same old. You got some interesting shit from them. And then that is a unique skill that not everyone has.
Well, it's like picking a band, right? You might have someone who doesn't normally play the drums. They play the bass, but they've got an aspect of the bass which has a beat that you're carrying with the drums that is transferable. So so I try to do that with a lot of the people, bring them in where they're around that space, even though they're not focusing on that one area. So it's kind of like going up to them and saying, hey, do you mind if we take a look over this for a second and give me your opinion on that? And they always have insights, the way that they look at things that blow my mind. Because I've reached the zenith of what I think about something. And so it's time for me to bring someone else in and say, what else? What am I missing? And with Michio Kaku, you can talk about anything. Drop it in there. He's like a great improv actor. You give him anything, run with this, you're this or that. And he has an opinion on it. And it's articulate and a perfect soundbite. And, same with Mike Masters, who, an anthropological biologist from Montana Tech. He will throw down on mankind and on where we've been and where we are going. And he's got great backup for that. And then we've got other people. Dave Foley's in it briefly, and he's dropping some wisdom. But then we get into, people like Deep Prasad, who is really good with computers, amazing, and thinks about things in a way that he's able to verbalize things that you can understand, first grader. But all of these guys, they were kind of handpicked, but then not really. It's just, I would interview this person. They say, oh, you're asking about this? Yeah, that's not my thing, but you should talk to this person. And so it becomes, this menu we're putting things on, these ingredients that you're putting together. I'm talking a lot in analogies today, especially with music. Love music. But that was the real challenge is we've seen a zillion different UFO docs. How do we approach this in a way that we haven't considered it before? And not having delusions of grandeur, but how do we look at this and say, hey, no one is looking at this area over here? Or like with the animation, we want to be able to show things that are very much, sorry, my girlfriend is laughing over there. She's on her work call.
Sorry.
Are you laughing at me? Are you laughing at me? Are you talking to me? And so that was the biggest surprise, is that I didn't control this. Sometimes you do a documentary and you know what the thesis is and you know where it's going to end up. I had zero idea. So with animation, it was a way to, after I got their story, to back into it and to say, this is what it was like. Because we've all seen that tic-tac footage where it's, the black and white clear footage. What's more dynamic is actually the audio of, oh gosh, look at it, now it's rotating. Hearing the experts, the military people, opine on it as it's happening, but I want to see it. And so having an animator say, all right, well, we're going to put you in the middle of it.
The James
Yeah,
Penniston
James
piece.
Penniston.
Yeah.
Seeing the craft in the
was
forest.
really
Yeah, insane, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was also the fact that you had, what was homie's name? Michael Visso, right?
Yeah.
The French NASA equivalent. Like,
Michel Viso. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Because,
didn't know there was a French equivalent. I mean,
no. And I
yeah.
think that's the thing, right? When aliens come, they always come to America in the movies, and like, and then you might have like a bit, and then like in England, and be like, "Oh, what, chaps? Thanks, Yanks," and then they'll clip to Japan or something like that. But we never see like another country's agency.
Yeah.
Like you just have the assumption that everyone goes to NASA, right?
Right.
But so it's interesting to see the French as well.
Oh yeah.
Like, because I don't think people would necessarily think France, space. You know what I mean? Like, you think US, like Russia, obviously.
Right.
I think like China are getting into it now.
India also has had a program since the 60s that
Yeah.
people don't really are privy to. Yeah, no, exactly. I was so enamored with that. I mean, the Vatican also has their own space program. It's just astronomy, but they've been tracking this stuff for a long time. And so it is a universal story that, we tell one story about this woman who had an experience in Australia.
That was fascinating. I hadn't heard that. Had not heard that story before.
Oh, right on.
That was just like, and that's the other thing that I really enjoyed. Sorry, I just need to say, see, that's one of the other things I really enjoyed, because there were these stories that I had not heard before. Hadn't heard James's story. Hadn't heard about that girl. So.
Yeah. No, that's great. See, that again, those are the cases that I wanted to seek out that showed this universal aspect of the phenomenon, but also to have it be something that UFO researchers, that some of them, especially some of the new ones, had no idea, hadn't heard about this case before, and to bring it to life, because I want someone to take that and maybe run with it and do some more investigating on that. So some of it is prompts, to say, hey, I'm playing with this. What do you think? Because I'm curious. The biggest compliment to the film would be if other people are inspired, or the filmmakers are inspired, to drill down on some of the cases that I presented, even more so, or are inspired to look at it in a different way. Because certainly I have been with other documentaries, in this space as well.
Yeah, like the girl, during lockdown, she wasn't at the time, but a couple of years later we met. But my girlfriend, she stumbled upon this TV show. Oh my God damn it. My mind is so terrible at times. It's of like these people, they got on a plane and then the plane disappears and then it comes back, I think like 5 years later. And
oh no, my mind is affected with that. Yes, it's huge. It's J.J. Abrams. It's
yeah.
Oh God.
No, not lost. Not lost.
Not Lost.
No. It was a newer one. And they come back and they haven't aged, but everyone else has aged. And like that, because this girl hasn't been gone for long, but then they find that her body shows aging, right? Like the hair growth and stuff like that, which I don't think anyone is necessarily picking up on.
Yeah.
Right, because you just look at her, but like if her arm hair, leg hair are a certain length, then obviously that depicts time, because that's not happening in an hour, that's not happening in a day. So that's just like, yo, that's like some sci-fi TV show shit. But I'd never heard of it, which is insane because you'd think, how are people not talking about that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that was a case again. It was in Australia, and we weren't covering as much. I think we cover much more of the globe than we ever did before. And so I think if that were to come out today,
Yeah.
like the aerial school, 60 kids out in the country, a progressive school with black, white, brown kids from different religions and everything, all at this school, see this craft land and these three beings get out. That if that happened today, that would have gone viral. It would have been huge, huge. And a lot of skeptics will say, well, how come it isn't happening now? And it's kind of like, well, again, I think the phenomenon controls what it wants you to, to see. And whatever, was to be gleaned from that was gleaned. It doesn't need to continue going on. I mean, it's up to us at some point to go, okay, maybe this happened for a reason. What is that? And for us to take it and run with it and not have to keep having this, similar experiences. That one is so well documented, it's up to us to keep it alive. One of my other documentaries I'm doing, I'm focusing a big chunk of it is on the aerial school and unearthing things that haven't been brought to light before.
Well, I know I heard it on, Rogan. He was talking to, I don't think it was Favor. He was talking to, oh gosh, the guy that used to work at Area 51.
Bob Lazar.
Yes, I think it was talking to Bob Lazar. And it was just like, and one of them brought up the fact that we suddenly start having these things documented once nuclear power has been kind of put out in the world. And a lot of the sightings are close to nuclear power stations and sites and things, which is very interesting.
Well, it makes sense. If you're going to be tracking a society and you're looking at their evolution, the technology evolution specifically, you're going to go there. I mean, some say that when the first bomb went off, nuclear bomb, that it was a beacon. It sent out a beacon to, like, hey, these guys they've achieved this. Now we got to, but they also have done demonstrations of being able to turn these things off, the missile side. I mean, that's insane that they can, turn these things off, and they're all on separate grids and they're able to turn them all off simultaneously. It's a demonstration. And, the question is, again, it's a behavioral thing. Why are they doing it? Why do they need to do that? Do they need to say, hey, later on, this might be happening, so we're going to smack down on you, let you know, don't even try. It's definitely a clear message.
It is, but also if you think about it, right? We're doing that, because it's kind of like with India and Pakistan trying to develop nuclear programs.
True.
Like the rest of the world is just like, no. Let's not do that shit. Right. So it's just like they're essentially doing what we're doing to other countries who are like, don't play with that shit. Like, stop running with scissors. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but sometimes they have to put their hand on the stove and burn it in order to learn that that's only going to end in pain. And so again, the meeting of the minds, getting to a place where beings can land on the White House lawn and we can sit down and talk with them and have an intelligent conversation. I don't know that we're able to reach the table maturity wise.
I would say no, right? Because when you look at interactions with people new, it's been very iffy. Like, it's been, you've got like there was that guy that got killed trying to sneak across to Sentinel Island, even though being told don't go to Sentinel Island. Still tries a thing, right? Still like, you need to be with the God. Here's the Bible. Be like, don't push the Bible on these people. Don't irritate these people, but still did it, right? You see, Amazon and other like Coca-Cola. Now, I don't know how true this is, but this is what I remember reading about the Inuits. I'm not sure if we're still saying Inuit. It keeps on changing, but they were all really healthy until Coca-Cola started dropping crates of Coca-Cola. Now there's huge rates of diabetes there.
Yeah, it's a form of addiction. You know, you make stuff available to people that are highly addictive. I mean, McDonald's has been doing a concerted campaign against, you know, society. When I say against, I mean to disable their ability to just eat food for the sake of eating food. They put so many preservatives in it. You know, cigarettes have 200 different types of preservatives.
Yeah.
You know, that have chemicals and stuff that are meant to induce that. The whole thing is to keep a customers going and going and going. And so, you know, when I hear that they infuse French fries with certain aspects of beef and stuff that they find to have been addictive, it's just we're back ass, you know, turn around. And so again, you know, I just keep coming back to the fact that we have to collectively get to a place where it's like, okay, enough, common sense. You know, I mean, we still have people who love to say that the world is flat, and then they do things like say, join the flat society. You know, our partners around the world come to. It's like, what you just said, around the world, or you're a global society. Well, hold on.
It can't be those things if it's flat.
Sorry. Can't have your conspiracy and eat it too.
No, there's some, like, I saw this interview, and there's this English politician who is just repugnant, like Reese Smog, right? And he was talking to this woman who happened to be black, and he was saying to her that black people should thank England for the Commonwealth and slavery. And it was just like, what are you talking about? Right? But there's still people with that mentality, and it's insane.
It's you know what, people will say shit just to be saying shit. They want to be provocative, and they'll come out with this stuff. It's also a weird time right now where capitalism is ruling, and it's, you know, having a child on this planet. I don't know where it's coming. There's going to be a lot of weird stuff happening. But when people like that can voice their opinion and do it from a way that's nothing but hate and ignorance, you know, I do believe in free speech, but I don't know. It's upsetting. It's upsetting.
Yeah. Well, there's no consistent, because this is the thing, right? He then gets a TV show, right? He gets a reality TV show. And I'm like, firstly, who wants to see this dickhead, you know what I mean, go about life? But there's other people that say, you know, crazy shit, and have everything cancelled.
Yeah.
So it is, you know, I'm like you. I think free speech, you know, because idiots, you know, show they're idiots, right? And after a while, you're just like, yo, this person, I'm not listening to this idiot, right? People tune them out. But it's like, it's this weird thing where you know, there's some people, they seem to get a pass, and other people, it's just like bring the house down on them. And so there's this inconsistency. It's like the world is run by VAR at the moment.
Well, you know what? I don't believe that these people stay around for long. Karma catches up with them, and so it's, you know, it all comes down to whether it's Buddha or Jesus. Treat others as you'd like to be treated. End of story. That's how it works. But yeah, well, brother, I've got to jump. to grab on to the next one, but I completely enjoyed talking about things outside of the UFO ufology as well as within it. This has been great. I really
Man, I really appreciate your time. I didn't even realize we've been talking that long.
Neither did I. I got the signal that time to move on. I'm like, oh, okay. So,
well, as you know, not everyone might know, but it's a two-parter, right? So let's touch base and have another conversation for part 2 and the last podcast and all the other things you have in the pipeline, because it all sounds very interesting, man. All sounds very interesting.
Absolutely. Thank you. I will be back, and I'm looking forward to sharing part 2 and seeing where the conversation takes us after the first one.
Also, do we have a date for part 2?
It'll probably, right now we're targeting May.
Oh, splendid.
Yeah, so not too far away.
Okay, that's good. And quickly, how can people keep track of everything you're doing and follow you and all of that jazz?
Sure. They can track me on Instagram at Dean Alioto, or Twitter, X, at Dean Alioto. Also, they can find me on TikTok on Captured Pictures Official. Those are the best ways to track me, and I update fairly often.
Awesome. People, definitely go check out the Alien Perspective, because you may have seen alien documentaries, but this is definitely something different. And Dean, this has been fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate your time, and I'm glad the audio did not hold us back, man.
I know. Yeah. Well, just one last mention. It is on Amazon right now, and also Apple TV. So if people want to know where to find it, that is where to find it.
Awesome. I will put the links on the website, people. So make sure you go. You'll be able to find links for everything Dean does, as well as the film. So go check it out and mark the calendar for May, tentatively for May, because we do not want to miss part 2.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. I really enjoyed this.
Hey, thanks, man. Have a great rest of the day. Yeah. And congrats on the movie.
Thank you, mate. Really appreciate that.
All right. Take it easy.
Cheers.
Bye.